Hi, friends. I'm Rob Teigen.
And I'm Joanna, and this is the Growing Home Together podcast.
We're caring for the soul of your family, helping you grow closer to God
and each other.
Thank you for joining us today at the Growing Home Together podcast. Today we're talking about the dad-daughter relationship. As a dad of my girls, Emma, Leah, and Anna, this is a topic I could not be more passionate about. More than anything, I want to have a close, loving relationship with each of them. And every dad of daughters that I talk to wants the same thing.
Yep, and that is why we are so excited to welcome today's guest, Dr. Michelle Watson-Canfield, to the show. Dr. Michelle is a professional counselor, a speaker, and the radio host of The Dad Whisperer. She's also the co-chair of the Dad-Daughter Division of the National Center for Fathering. So recently, she released her latest book, Let's Talk, Conversation Starters for Dads and Daughters, to give dads a powerful tool to reach their daughter's heart. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with both of you.
Well, thanks. And I have to say, as a mom, that it means so much to me that Rob is invested in his role as a dad. So I really appreciate your work to equip guys like him to grow a close and healthy relationship with their daughters. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you began working with dads?
Sure, you're right, because it's a crazy assignment, right? To have a woman, quote, ministering to men. Well, it was about a decade ago. It was in December of 2009. I was reading in Luke 1. You know, who doesn't read that part of scripture, right, at Christmas time? And I was reading that Zechariah was told that his son, John, who wasn't even yet born, would help turn the hearts, not the heads, of fathers to their children. And I just, out of the blue, heard God whisper to my spirit and say, Michelle, that's what I want you to do. And it was like, what? You know, here I've been in ministry for decades, and it's always been to women, you know, a lot of teenage women, 20-something women. And this was a really unusual assignment. And a couple days later, I just heard the words, the Abba Project, while I was blow-drying my hair one random morning. Abba meaning daddy in Aramaic, and men love a project, right? And I just, you know how when it's God whispering to your spirit, you don't forget it, it stays with you? So that's how that was that whole month. So January of 10, over a decade ago, I emailed 11 dads whose daughters were my clients at the time in their teens or 20s, and said, would you want to join me once a month for 6 months to see if there's a change in you, your daughter, and your relationship? 10 of the 11 dads said, we're in. We ended up going a year. Here I am now 10 years later, and it has been one of the greatest joys of my heart, you guys, to see dads rise up with more, I would call it tools in their toolbox as a father. And when dads, I have found, step up to the plate, it builds their competence and then their confidence. And I say, dads, here, I'm a woman. I live on Venus. You're on Mars. So I'm learning. I now would call myself bilingual after 10 years of coaching dads in how to relate to their daughters with more efficiency. And I just find dads are so excited to have more tools to know how to decode their daughters. And I get to be in the background whispering, saying, here, say it like this. I think you're going to find it's going to go better for you, but don't tell her where you got the ideas. You get all the credit. Yeah, so that's what I'm all about.
That is so great. I love your book, Let's Talk. Last night, even I was going through it at the kitchen counter and just kind of getting ready for today. So I was going back through it, and my daughter came down from her room, and we started going through some of the questions. And I was amazed how fast that hour went and how she opened up. And how much fun we had just going through some of these questions. And so
how old is she?
She is 17.
See, sweet spot. I love that.
Yes, and we had some fun laughing, and yet we got into some serious questions too. And just to give you an idea of what I have to deal with, I think one of the questions was, you know, what do you hope to achieve? And she said she wants to be the first woman on the sexiest men under 30 list. So this is what I'm having to navigate, but it was so much fun. And so I know this is your second book, I believe, with
yes.
To Dads and Daughters. Can you tell me what led you to write Let's Talk?
Sure. Well, after coaching dads for so many years, and what I do is every month, you know, it's here's the theory, you know, like we're going to talk about, her personality and finding a way to connect that way or through love languages or understanding body image or dating or sex and sexting and, and even God as a father, right? Here's all these themes. But I don't think dads I have found just need to know more information. They already know they need to be, more dialed in or more engaged. So my heart is really to build the bridge from them to their daughter's heart through talking. So every month I give dad-daughter date questions on those themes. And, a few years ago, probably about 3, I just got the next download from God about the next book because I didn't just want to write another book to write a book,
Sure.
And so from listening to dads in the groups is so often at the end of 9 months, they would say, now what do we do? You've given us the scripts, but what do we do now that we're on our own, And so that was really where God pressed on my spirit and said, write another book with more conversation starters. So really in the book, I have 5 sections, and my goal is really to equip dads to be the leaders in their homes, because I think too often dads kind of acquiesce to mom and say, here, I'm going to step back. You're a girl. Here, you understand girls. You're the one that can relate to our daughter in these certain areas. And I'm like, no, the research shows that every area of a daughter's life is better when she feels connected to her dad. And so, dad, that means if you have the scripts in front of you, you now don't have to reinvent the wheel. But here's what you can say. And then if your daughter doesn't like the question, you just blame me and I'm your fall guy. And they're like, I'm good with that. So really the 5 sections are dad, lead her to laugh, lead her to love herself and others, lead her to look at deeper issues under the surface that maybe you normally would avoid and turn over to mom, then lead her to lament, looking at things that have hurt her, either from you or from other areas or other people in her life. And then the last one is lead her to listen, where I flip the script. And now a daughter can ask her dad about his life. And one of my clients, she's 34, and she and her dad are going through this book weekly, which I love.
Oh, I love that too.
And so she said this week that she was like, okay, this week, dad gave me the book and I got to ask him questions about his life. And so she said, I heard some of the stories before, but some of them I hadn't heard. And I absolutely love that this is a practical resource that's affecting change in a dad-daughter relationship. And to tell you the truth, even with keeping this confidential, but this is a daughter who was raised in the church, in her parents' church, and she's not so cool with that right now. And she's gay. She's in a relationship with a woman, and that's been really hard for this dad. And so that's one of the questions in there under leader to look is a same-sex attraction questionnaire, like a whole set of questions on that subject. So dad is now equipped to connect with his daughter's heart in an area that he doesn't understand by asking questions rather than running out of things to ask her because he's like, I don't even know what to say. And it is building a bridge between this dad and daughter that is really beautiful in this season.
Yeah, I think it's really important because I don't want to generalize, but sometimes I know for me, I'm not always as in touch with my feelings, or I'm not as maybe emotional as some of my daughters are, that kind of thing. So I loved that when I was going through the book, like you talk about lamenting. I'm going through a program right now, a spiritual formation master's program. And we just got done, and one of the things we were working on and talking about was the spiritual discipline of lamenting and that kind of thing. And I don't know if a lot of dads even have wrestled with some of these questions and these things. So the talking points that you give are a great way to open a dad's heart too. So it's really good.
Yeah, I love that you're highlighting that, Rob, because so I just got married a few months ago. I'm coming up on 4 months married.
Congratulations.
If you can believe that. And I married a man who's been a friend and a colleague for years, and his wife died. Is really invested in the lamenting process with his children and grandchildren because of the loss of his wife, their grandmother and mother. And so he actually said to me, I think that is the most important section in your entire book, because if we don't attend to the wounded areas physically, right? It affects our whole body.
Right.
Well, the same with areas of woundedness on the inside of us that I think, especially for women, often lead us to look for love in all the wrong places, whether that wound is from dad or from maybe a relationship that went sideways, or even just disappointment. It might be a job loss or a dream loss. But that area, if a dad can connect with his daughter's pain Oh my goodness. What better way to build a bridge to her heart, to be able to hold that space and that emotion in that season with her? Dad, she will trauma bond with you for life, which is the strongest bond that two people can have. And so again, as you can tell, my goal is to equip dads to lead conversations to build a stronger relationship with their daughters.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so we have 5 kids, and our 3 middle ones are our daughters. Rob mentioned our little jokester who's still in high school. And then we have 2 young adults. And actually, our oldest daughter was just engaged a few days ago. We're super excited.
Congrats.
Yeah, he's the sweetest guy. But I know that for each of them, that their relationship with Rob has made a huge impact on the young women that they have become. So more big picture, what do you think is so significant about the father-daughter relationship in a girl's life?
Well, I love that you're asking that question. And I just even want to just give a shout out is Rob, you and I connected, 6 years ago, because we both had written books at the same time for dads of daughters. And I love your book, right? 88 Daddy-Daughter Dates, because also you could talk on this as much as I could about the importance of the father-daughter relationship. But I think just as a foundation, we know that our names typically come from our fathers, right? Our last name. Right. So this has to do with our identity, with who we are. Our name ties to our father. But I think the second thing that is so huge, and this might be stating the obvious, but is that fathers, I believe, have one of the most important responsibilities ever that God has entrusted to them, which is building a bridge to himself as a father. And the enemy, who's also called what? A father of lies, small f. Jesus named him that, right? I would have often thought he would have been called like the CEO of lies or the instigator of lies. But no, he's called the father because he's a counterfeit father. And I believe the enemy has a specific agenda against fathers because he wants to fill that place as a father. And again, that's why I'm so passionate. One of the reasons is to really equip dads to stand as a champion of fathers, because you build a bridge to God's heart as a father. And when a dad isn't there for his daughter to hear, her dad's voice, I know that most dads say, I want her to hear God as a father, want to hear his voice. And so dads, you matter because you build that bridge, whether you know it or not, of how your daughter will view God as a dad.
Wow. That's powerful. You mentioned our dad-daughter date book, and we also a few years ago released kind of lighthearted conversation starter cards for dads and daughters. But your book, Let's Talk, kind of takes that a notch up, digging a little bit deeper with hurts and challenges like we had mentioned earlier that daughters face. Why do you think regular conversations with our daughters are so important?
Well, here's a little trick or a little insight, I should say. I call it a trick because, we all say there's tricks to our trade. And it's like if dads can kind of have a few, I would say, ways to understand their daughter better, they're going to be able to dial in with more precision. So here it is, Dad. When we as women open our mouth, our heart opens. Like I would ask all of you men listening, even women listening, when we stop talking, like the drawbridge comes up, we're closed for business. It ain't good, right? Men are like, what did I do? Like, tell me what to do to fix it. Like, if she ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right? So when we stop talking, our heart closes because our mouth closes, right? But when our mouth opens and our heart opens, a dad's heart opens, right? There's the truth in plain language is when our mouth opens, our heart opens. And when our heart opens, a dad's heart is open. So it really comes down to how can a dad get us talking? And I don't care if we're an introvert or an extrovert. Either way, when we start talking, we actually figure ourselves out. I mean, Joanna, maybe you can comment on this too, not only for yourself, but even as a mom of daughters, is sometimes we don't even know what we're thinking. But when we start talking, we figure ourselves out by talking. So really, that's the heart behind this book, is wanting dads to know how they can help their daughters start talking. Because once they do, it helps the relationship with you and it helps the relationship with herself to strengthen.
That's right. And, sometimes though that can feel a little difficult. I mean, we're in a season where we're wrapping up a lot of years of parenting teenagers. And one thing that we've learned is that teenagers can be kind of a tough nut to crack. They put up walls and you don't know how to get them to open up and talk to you. And I feel like for a lot of our young women right now going through this really rough year,
Yeah.
the emotional baggage has started to feel pretty heavy, and it can be even more difficult, but you have an even higher sense of urgency to kind of break through and connect. So what would you tell the dad whose daughter seems reluctant to talk to him?
Which is many dads, right? If not most in this season, that even on a good day, a dad can't fully figure her out. Right. But remember, Dad, she can't figure herself out either. Sometimes dads say like, well, if you would tell me, then I would know. And we're like, we don't even know what's going on inside to tell you what we need or want. But Dad, just remember that your daughter needs you more than you may know or more than she may know. And you get to work at needing Holy Spirit power behind you for revelation to know how to reach each of your daughters and your son's heart space, right? And so what I want to encourage you, dads, is when you don't know what to say or do, and that's what this one dad I was just telling you about this week has done with his daughter, is hand her the book, if you want this Let's Talk book, and say, which one of these topics would you like us to talk about today? Let her choose. Because if she knows that she has choice and then she has voice, those are two ways to raise an empowered daughter. So by giving her the opportunity to choose which one she's in the mood for today, it might be that she wants to do a laughing conversation with you today, where you get to ask her, what item of my clothing would you love to see me get rid of? Okay, there you go. Let her make fun of you.
And she'll be like, just one?
Exactly. We love, I'm one of four daughters. I love making fun of my dad's clothes. It's part of the deal, right? Especially on the phase of her development. If she's in high school or middle school, she's going to love that. But then some of the lighthearted questions are, okay, what do you want your wedding day to be like? What flowers? What colors? Where would you like to get married? Like, let her dream with you. I have yet to find a dad that has really delved into that conversation with his daughter. But if she's having a really heavy time, which is really this year, like you just said, kids are struggling to do online school. This has really been, as we all know, really kind of a drain for all of us. Is I'm going, Dad, you might have to do your dad-daughter date at home or do it in the car, order out, takeout, get it sent to your car. I mean, do something creative, go in the backyard. Like, if you create time, if you get creative and create time, look at those words go together, don't they? Creative. Your daughter doesn't need a lot, but if you can let her know that you thought of her and you're thinking about what would brighten her day, go get a special drink. Drop it off at her door of her room, knock on the door and walk away. Here's another practical idea, Dad, is go get a dry erase marker or a pack of sticky notes. Write a note on the mirror in her bedroom, her bathroom, the rearview mirror of her car to say, I'm praying for you today. I love being your dad. Do a smiley face. Say, I'm praying for you today in this way. Or I'm proud of you for not giving up when school's hard. Your words will breathe life into her. And the more you can encourage and uplift her in this season in ways like that, I guarantee it will be a bridge builder to her heart between the two of you.
Yeah, that's great. I remember reading, and I thought that was such a simple but great idea. I think that was in your first book as well, to do the sticky notes. And I remember thinking that's just a great way to connect, easy way to connect with your daughter.
And even if you're a dad who travels a lot for work, I got this idea from another dad who said, I now travel with this dry erase marker you gave me and the pack of sticky notes. And he said, when I'm in a hotel, I write on that mirror, take a picture, and send it in real time to my daughters.
That's a great idea.
Leave it to a dad to come up with even more ideas. So because dads have great ideas, but I think sometimes they feel shot down, or they maybe get a bad response one time and then go, I'm not doing that again, right? Because I've discovered men would rather do nothing than do it wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So if they're like, I did that was not good, then sometimes dads feel gut punched and they stop trying anymore. And I just hope even from this conversation today that dads will be encouraged not to give up even when it's hard. Because think about sports. I mean, guys get brutally knocked down on a football field, or they get gut punched when they're, doing a layup. You don't quit the game.
Yeah.
You keep going. Now do that in your relationships with your kids. Is your daughter needs you to pursue her heart, even when she has horrible responses. She hates the boundaries you've set. Don't back off, because your daughter needs you. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be present. Keep showing up and ask her this question. What do you need from me to be a better dad to you? Just ask her that. She'll tell you. And if she doesn't want to talk to you, text it. But still ask her how you could be a better dad to her. Another dad I know with his 4-year-old daughter asks her every night when he tucks her in, has Daddy been sharp with you today? And then if he has and she tells him that, he gets to make it right. He gets to make amends. Because I'm telling you, I asked dads in my group, how many of you are married to a woman or were married to a woman that you would say has father wounds? Sadly, most of the time, every hand goes up. And I'm thinking, okay, dad, take from that. You're a dad. Make amends now. Because a lot of dads that I coach say, oh, that was not being harsh. You want to hear harsh. You want to hear anger. That wasn't anger, and she's in a puddle. So you have to pace right with the wiring of each daughter. And that response may actually be devastating her. But if you ask, have I been sharp with you today? She may go, yes, when you looked at me and you're like, I didn't even know I had a look. But you get to say, will you forgive me? I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? That's how you restore, right, the relationship again, so that she doesn't go into adulthood with these dad wounds that you may or may not have even know came from you. Like, now's the time, Dad, more than ever. You're home. Many of you are working from home and your kids are home more. I would encourage you, Dad, to create a time every week to do, even if it's a half hour with each of your kids, each of your daughters especially. Create a half-hour time that's just the two of you. Want even another practical idea that I heard from another dad? You can tell I love practical action stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's another one that I got from another dad who has, if you can believe this, 9 children.
Whoa.
Oh my goodness. Here's what he said is every night, so with 9 kids, all the way down to a 1-year-old, like they don't have a lot of time or money to go out. He said every night we tuck all the kids in bed, but that one child gets 45 minutes with me and my wife. So everybody else goes to bed, but that child knows they get, I think actually it might have been 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour, one-on-one with each of us as parents. So I'm saying, Dad, if that's your time with your daughters, isn't that a great idea?
Yeah, for sure.
One-on-one time with mom and dad, or one-on-one time just with you and dad, or mom can go with one child, you can go with another. And then if you don't know what to talk about, open up Let's Talk, my book, and go, let's do one of these I even have activities in there. So practical ways to engage your daughter's heart, that's what I'm all about.
That's great. So once we've started and we've gotten a handle of kind of doing some of the regular conversations and we've put the dad-daughter dates on the calendar, how does a dad know it's making a difference?
That's a great question, because really sometimes you might have a more introverted daughter that doesn't really tell you, or we talked earlier about a reluctant daughter who doesn't really want to engage and dad doesn't get much response back. So then he's like, I don't even know if I should keep doing this. I'm saying, Dad, keep doing it regardless. Find a way to her heart. If she doesn't like touch, you might just have to, give her a kiss on the top of her head. It's quick, but she's still going to remember that. And if you don't know if your daughter's into it, you might have to either ask your wife, even if you are divorced, you might ask your ex-wife. You might have to write a note and say, on a 0 to 10 scale, how close would you say we are? What could I do to be a better dad to you? It might be verbal, it might be in writing, but there's a way that you can get feedback one way or the other. You might have to do it in writing. You might have to ask someone else, or ask her directly. How close are we? 0 to 10? What number would you like us to be? What could we do? What could I do for us to be closer? And I guarantee there will be some way to get feedback. If it's not verbal in person, usually you can try writing and get some kind of a reaction back.
Yeah.
Or response. It might not be a reaction, but it'll be some kind of an interactive response so that you get feedback.
Yeah, I love that. That is so helpful. And, I really, as a mom and as a wife, I really want to stand in Rob's corner as he's fathering our girls. So I was hoping that you might have some advice for me and the other moms who are listening about how we can be an encouragement and a support of the father-daughter relationship.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, because so many women that I've talked with have said the same thing as you, Joanna. They're like, I want them to be closer, or I hear from my daughters that they're not as close, or they think dad's mad at them and moms are running interference, right? A lot of times, or trying to kind of be caught in the middle, and they're like, I don't like this, but it's kind of where I find myself. And so one way, and this is going to really sound self-serving, and so I say that on the front end, but really moms and grandmoms listening, I hope they can buy this book to help support the dad-daughter relationship, right?
Right.
Or it's moms saying, hey, can I really be more careful with what I say about my husband or ex-husband? Because really, moms, if you're putting dad down to your daughter, she's not going to want to go spend time with him. So it's really, I say, moms, watch what you say, turn it into a prayer, goes up, right? To the your Father in heaven is hearing you when you see those things that dad may intentionally or unintentionally be doing to hurt your daughter. And then you feel that personally, is turn that into a prayer, write that in your journal. And then really what you say to your daughter is going to have a big impact on her wanting to connect or not connect with her dad. And that's another way. You just really watch what comes out of your mouth. And then I would say the more you can encourage your husband saying, hey, do you know how important you are? I find that a lot of times a more positive, proactive approach goes a long way with men, because they already maybe beaten themselves up anyway. So saying, do you know how important you are to your daughter? I watch her light up when you come in the room. He may go, what are you talking about? I don't even notice that. Because I always say men read lines, women read between lines.
Right.
And so we can help men see what we're seeing. Like, wow, I watched her whole face light up when you gave her that compliment. Really? I didn't even pick that up. Yeah, you make such a difference. Here, did you know that Dr. Michelle has a whole questionnaire on her self-esteem? And maybe you run off a chapter rather than give him the whole book if that feels daunting. But I have 60 conversation starters in there. 54 are dads to daughters, 6 are daughters to dads. And really, you can help set dad up to succeed by saying, here's one that I think might be helpful. And then get that, conversation started with your dad and with her dad, your daughter with her dad. And you get to sit back and watch what happens, praying all the way for them to bond more.
Yeah, I love that. It's no secret that I really love Rob. And I so much want our daughters to kind of capture that same love for him too. I know they do. So I love your words. That is just huge encouragement.
Well, I even want to ask you a question, Joanna, just between you and me. Rob can listen in. But you said that your daughter just got engaged, right?
Yes.
Did she choose a man at all like her dad?
Oh my goodness. By the day we discover more things that they have in common. And I love that. But she has literally told us that dad is the perfect guy. Like she thinks her dad is the best thing since sliced bread. And I just love what they've had between them. But, I've seen that Rob has done a lot of the things that you're talking about. He did start investing in her early. He did give her undivided attention. She always felt with him like she was enough and that he really heard her when she was talking. And so he built this amazing level of trust with her. And so now she's found a young man who is so tender with her heart. He's so caregiving and really seeks to understand her just like her dad. And it's cute. They even both like to collect things with moose on them. So it's
yeah, that's how I knew he was a winner.
Oh, Rob, you have a moose on your sweater right now. I just realized that.
Oh, I love it. She choose a man like her father. And I think sometimes daughters think they're choosing a man if it's a poor relationship with dad, exactly opposite of their dad, only to discover in time, right? He's a lot like her father. But even my husband, Ken, said, Michelle, I think you could have called this book, Let's Talk and Listen. Yeah. Because I love that you highlighted that Rob is a good listener, because sometimes men wander off with their attention. So really that active listening piece is, as I start the book by coaching dads in that, is lean forward, nod your head, say, listen. And because your daughter, Dad, I guarantee she watches how long you can sustain interest in a football game or in a basketball game on television, but she sees how quickly you might get tired of listening to her. But really, it's all about listening as your daughter's talking to you. So I love hearing that story from your lives as well.
Yeah. And it's not always easy, I mean, just to kind of identify with the dads that are maybe struggling to kind of reach out and connect. I mean, I'm really glad that I took that time when they were young to build that. But as they grow and they mature, there are, like you said, some of those conversations are harder to have. Sometimes it's not the same. Like I remember when they were little, I'd say, "Hey, who wants to go to the grocery store with me?" And they would fight over it. And then when they were in their teen years, they weren't as interested as running errands with me and that kind of thing.
Right.
But I think you even mentioned in your book, there's never a daughter who says, "Oh, my dad spent too much energy or too much. I feel too connected to my dad." And every step that you take to move forward and towards your daughter pays off because their hearts long to be connected with their dad. So those years that we built, even in some of those rockier years where, I had to kind of re-navigate, and that's part of the challenge too. Like you said, sometimes it's easier to want to go passive and do nothing because you think, I don't know how to tread this water. But when you step into it, they want you to have their heart. So they'll
Exactly.
if you move towards them, they're going to move it towards you. It just may take there might be periods where it takes more time.
So Rob, because you have 3 daughters, right? They don't come with a playbook. I always say, Dads, I'm
Right.
going to help you write one, but I'm imagining that you had to do it different with all 3 because they're different personalities. How did you learn to listen well?
Well, it's interesting. We kind of enter into from our background. So I didn't have any sisters. So
Okay.
here I have 3 older brothers. And so I walked into it with a little bit of fear and trembling when we found out we
Yeah.
were, our oldest is a son. So I thought God kind of gave me a little bit of reprieve there, gave me time to think about it. But I just knew I traveled a lot when our kids were young. And I knew my dad traveled a lot as well. And so he wasn't home much. And I just knew that I was going to have to work harder to connect with them. So it just really, that one-on-one dates, I started with that. And it was easier because we could go to the park and they would just think I was a hero for taking them,
Right.
playing with them on the park and that kind of thing. But yes, each one of them were different. And so I did have to just listen to their hearts. And when they knew that I just wanted to be with them and I just loved them, they would open up to me.
Mm. Yeah, you just showed up and you listened.
Right. And I think in one way that kind of makes a case for quantity time. I mean, Rob did try to create intentional situations of quality time also, but when you're just there day after day after day, you have those opportunities and then you're present when the girls, when the wall does come down for a minute,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. It might be just for a minute, but when you're there, and that's what I have really found in the last 10 years of coaching dads is when they set up one-on-one time with their daughters, we feel pursued, right? We feel cherished and you want time with me. I even know one dad who owned a business, super busy, and literally canceled an appointment to take his daughter out to lunch on a school day. She never forgot it. She's like, he had to sacrifice and he put me as more important. She'll never forget that. So dads, just know that your daughter, like we're saying, longs to be seen by you, heard by you, known by you. And even through the reactive years, she still longs for that underneath all that reactivity. So don't ever stop pursuing her heart. And remember too, it's never too late.
Yeah,
You may say, oh, my daughter's 25. I already blew it. I didn't start as early as Rob. No, never too late. Would you
no,
guys agree?
absolutely. And, what I would say about my daughters too is they have a lot of grace. And I think as dads, we get a little bit nervous. I take my daughter out. What kind of questions are we going to, what kind of landmines are there your daughter if your daughter hears you say, I want to spend more time with you, they'll give you a lot of grace if you don't have all the answers to all the questions. If they know your heart is you love your daughter and you want to spend time with her, the conversations will come. And that's what I love about your book is you kind of take a progression. Like you said, you learn to laugh. So a lot of those first questions that you give in the book are just get to know you, get to have fun, create, remember memories, and those kind of things. And then you just kind of progress into those conversations, just like any relationship, it progresses. And so just take that step and then keep taking that step. And if she knows that you genuinely want to spend time with her, my daughters have always at least given me a lot of grace because I haven't done it perfect by any means along the way. So.
Yeah. And I love that you highlight that. Is I can say as a daughter, it isn't about my dad being perfect. I mean, my dad and I for a lot of years did Monday night shopping at Costco, because grocery shopping wasn't very fun. So that was our dinner. It wasn't even that it was expensive. We're eating Costco food, not high end. But that was where we would talk. And I remember one day I asked my dad, do you think we're close? You know what his response was? I don't think we're as close as you'd like us to be. Mm. And I said, you're right, because it wasn't enough talking about the things that are really deep inside me. And I know that motivated me in part to write this book. Mm. Like these questions I wish my dad would ask more. And my dad asked some of them, right? But my dad grew up on the south side of Chicago and was in gangs from the time he was 12.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he had no template in how to be a dad. Mm-hmm. His dad died homeless, lived in a boxcar. I mean, just a horrid upbringing in many ways. And so he didn't have a template of how to be a dad. And so he did better than his dad, mm-hmm. and I give him credit for that. But really, my heart behind this is to say, dads, you think we're complicated, but really, if you just ask us questions and listen and give us your time and your attention, do you know what that does for us? Because then we know if you want to hear us, our voice matters. And our voice can be heard, and we're going to use it out in the world to make a difference for good. And it starts at home with you. Mm. So, dads, I'm one of your biggest champions, and clearly so are Rob and Joanna.
Well, Michelle, I'd love it if you could share with dads how they can connect with you more and get a copy of Let's Talk, because it's a powerful book.
Sure. Well, you can go to my website, which is just drmichellewatson.com, DrMichelle Watson.com. I don't have my new married last name on there. I'm keeping it the way I've had it for years. So drmichellewatson.com, I have a link there. You can go to any book retailer. I often tell people Amazon, but you can use anyone. Just Let's Talk, conversation starters for dads and daughters. And then I have free resources on my website. And then I also have the Dad Whisperer podcast there. It's on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play, because really I'm all about resourcing dads so they don't have any excuse to say they don't have what they need to engage their daughters' hearts. I'm like, here you go. I'm giving you as much as I can give you to set you up to succeed, to be the hero you want to be and that your daughter needs you to be.
That's awesome. I'm going shopping. Okay. Well, thank you, Michelle, for taking time to talk with us today about the dad-daughter relationship. And you've really given us all some great wisdom and great hope that will make a real difference to our families.
Oh, it's been a joy to be with you both today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us today on the Growing Home Together podcast, friends. And we're helping you care for the soul of your family and growing home together with you.